We're here live on the field in Jacksonville. Jeff Sintel, my name is Brandon Adams. More of our Kroger Kickoff coverage. We're just behind us, coming up in a few minutes. Georgia's going to take on Florida here at 3:30 p.m. in the game that's always been known as the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And Jeff, we've certainly seen the sights and sounds of the last couple of days, both at St. Simon's, the King and Prince, and of course in Jacksonville here today and last night. Certainly this game and this reputation that it has around the tailgating, once again living up to the hype here. It truly is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to watch about and learn about football, Brandon. Football's time. It's the time to talk about this game. Main thing we should start talking about right now is Big Country, Big Cleveland, making the trip to Jacksonville. His possibilities to play for this game will be very interesting for a Georgia offense that needs to run the ball and protect the quarterback. Now, I know you have a fashion comment. You want to talk about those white albino Florida Gator helmets, right?
Yeah, listen, I'm not impressed by those at all, but I am impressed by your assessment of Ben Cleveland, who we did see as part of our Kroger Kickoff of the dog walk a little earlier. He was the first Georgia player to make his way in. Some people might say, well, does that really matter who the first guy off the bus is? It seems like you are putting some credence in that.
Well, you look at this, and Georgia this week did not hold an open practice on late in the week. And all the conspiracy theorists out there are already thinking, did they give Cleveland a try? Did they see if he could go? Of course, Kirby Smart would never be a guy to tip his hand about who's available and who's not before a big game. But if Ben Cleveland, that big Cleveland country strong, if he can go, you got to say this, Ben Cleveland was Georgia's maybe most effective offensive lineman early on, either himself or Andrew Thomas. That makes for a stronger Georgia, makes for a better run game, and it also makes me want to almost lose my voice a little bit.
Well, one of the things you also notice here as part of our Kroger Kickoff, if you want to make a point of saying that Ben Cleveland was the first player walking into the stadium today, right behind Georgia coach Kirby Smart, you can't help but notice that the player walking immediately behind him was Justin Fields. Walking just behind Fields was the other quarterback, the presumed starter, Jake Fromm. If we're going to talk about the order in which players enter the building, what did you make of Fields being so close to the front of that line?
Well, we're at that line a lot, Brandon, and I think it's a bad look if your quarterbacks don't get off the bus really fast. Those guys are always very, very outgoing. It's funny. Jake always does the dog walk, taking pictures, not taking pictures, but smiling, very photogenic. Justin is very businesslike, kind of like that cold-blooded assassin getting ready to go play ball. There are two different approaches to these guys, much like a overall athletic quarterback versus a pocket passer. Both of those guys were out of the bus early. I did think it was highly interesting watching all the Bulldogs come through. Robert Beal did not make the trip as well, and he was a guy who had a recent string of pretty decent performances.
That's a good point.
So you got to wonder, Beal probably didn't have a good string of practices leading up to this game, but I think the big dog walk intel talk about this is Big Country, Big Cleveland. If he can play, if he starts and he's that healthy to go, I think that will cure a lot of the ills for the Georgia offense.
We'll take some comments here in our Kroger Kickoff in just a moment. That's Jeff Sintel. My name is Brandon Adams. We are live here on the field in Jacksonville for our Kroger Kickoff, getting ready for Georgia and Florida coming up in a couple of minutes. I've only been on the field now for a few minutes after being around this stadium a lot today, outside for the dog walk earlier. It seems like right now, sun coming in a little bit more. It's a little sunnier than it was. The best I can tell, it feels a little less windy inside the stadium on the field than it felt to me walking around the stadium a little earlier. At one point, I thought that wind was apparently going to be a big factor in today's game. Down here now, it seems a little less obvious than it might be, although the American flag behind us is standing almost at full mast here straight ahead. What do you make of the windy conditions here today? Georgia has a good kicker. The Florida kickers had a pretty good season. Both these quarterbacks, all the quarterbacks likely to play today, have strong arms. Does a windy condition here favor one team or the other in your mind?
I think it favors the more accurate passers, the more accurate quarterbacks. That checkbox would go to Georgia. Obviously, Georgia's kicking game is superior to what Florida has as well. I mean, those are two big things you think of about wind. You think about how can the quarterbacks power the ball through the air. Another pregame observation is you see Aaron Murray throwing some passes. You also see, which should be interesting to some Dog Nation fans out there, Lawrence Smith is here. He's got a cane, I think, but he is here on the sidelines after that broken hip in Jacksonville, ready to see another Georgia-Florida game.
All right, we want to take as many comments as we can. Here's part of our Kroger Kickoff coverage. We'll also show you more of the warm-ups. As it stands right now, not a lot from Georgia going on in the field behind us, but when Georgia's back out here, We'll try to show you a few minutes of that here as well. One of the comments I'm getting a lot here today is Eric Song saying, "Run, baby, run." Matt Rukavina saying, "Keep chopping." Christy Michael Williams are hoping for a better game plan. There's a lot of talking here about what Georgia seemingly did against LSU, which was not keep chopping, didn't stick with the run game, didn't give Elijah Holyfield enough carries, didn't give DeAndre Swift enough carries. I think it's been one of the most common themes both in this comment section right now, other than people making fun of my hair for flying all over the place. But one of the most common themes has been the notion of let's find a way to feed these running backs. That seems to be something that Dog Nation, which has been somewhat divided here over the last couple of weeks, is almost completely unanimous on.
I think this is a game where Swift gets 15 carries, Holyfield gets 15 carries, maybe Harrion gets 10 to 12 carries. I think a lot of people would like to see that, and I see maybe Justin Fields, does he get 5, 6, 7, 8 carries as well in the rushing column? I think that's a way Georgia can take the pressure off this Florida defense, can get those Gators to dial back those blitzes a little bit, and stay out of those nasty 3rd and longs.
The other thing, and Stephen Carr is a great example of this in our Facebook comment section, you're hearing and seeing a lot of rivalry talk in the comment section here today. And given the fact that this is a game in which Georgia needs to bounce back and play with more emotion and energy than it played with 2 weeks ago, a rivalry opponent here like Florida would seem to be the perfect recipe for that. You guys know, if you watch and listen to Dog Nation Daily, you know how much I believe in this idea of a Gatorade rivalry, how much the cocktail party means to me. But I think it's great to see so many Georgia fans, Jeff, who apparently feel the same way in the comment section here about Georgia and Florida, because that rivalry certainly gives you a chance to get the energy that Georgia may need today.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think Chip Towers wrote this week, and I think it's pretty accurate, and it goes without saying as well, that Georgia, you will find out what Georgia has. Oh, by the way, there's Elijah Holyfield's dad.
There's the real deal Vander Holyfield, who was the guest picker here today on ESPN College Game Day. Mr. Holyfield walking by right now. He's got an Elijah Holyfield jersey that was just handed to him. So the former champion of the world here, part of the host of celebrities. I thought I was lucky to get to stand next to Jeff Sintel, but to have Elijah Holyfield, his dad Vander Holyfield, standing right next to us, that's another pretty good little dose of celebrity right there.
Yeah, it's funny. And notice why I said that. I called him Elijah Holyfield's dad, not the 4-time world heavyweight champion of the world. Just speaking out to our audience right here. But, the main thing I think Chip was saying in that story is you're going to know what the Bulldogs have after this game. Lots of Georgia fans I spoke to around the tailgate circles this morning said, look what LSU did after they got humbled by Florida. When you lose a game, how does the team rise up? And if Georgia does not deliver its best effort of the year, the counterpunch to get that sting out of that loss to LSU this year, I think that is a troubling sign for this season and this team.
David Wiley in our Facebook comment section used a phrase to describe much of what you just said, Jeff. He called it a litmus test. And in a lot of ways, I believe that is true. And I think it's not just a litmus test for the SEC East here. I should say not just a litmus test for Georgia, but potentially all of the SEC East. I mean, I think we can say, as you take a look at Vander Holyfield right there, getting some photography time with the Elijah Holyfield jersey on. How cool is that to see Holyfield looking good there in that regard? A great scene here on the field for our Kroger Kickoff here on the Dog Nation video channels, which we appreciate you being a part of. But the point that I was making a moment ago, a litmus test David Wiley in the Facebook comment section uses, I think that's true for Georgia. I think it's true for the SECs. Last year was a message that everything changed in a big way in the East because of a 42-7 Georgia win and because of how easily Georgia not just coasted to a division title, but also towards his own SEC championship as well. Honesty compels you to admit here that Dan Mullen in Florida want to send an equally significant message this year that no, it didn't change Georgia fans the way you thought it did. If anything, it's changed back here to Florida. This game has a gigantic feel. These two teams haven't been ranked against each other since 2012, haven't been ranked in the top 10 against each other since 2008, but there are high stakes for these two teams today, and I don't think litmus test is too strong of a word to use.
It's a season-defining moment. It's a program crossroads, and I know that everybody would think that's a reporter or a writer's hyperbole, but I think, and as I've said on our shows this week, if Dan Mullen in year one beats Kirby Smart in year three, then a lot of that momentum for the Georgia program, the Rose Bowl win, the beauty of that season, everybody starts to wonder, okay, was that a market correction? Was that a false positive for Georgia? I mean, needless to say what would happen with the quarterback situations, who's the dominant tailback, lots of things. There would be a lot of questions in our Northside Hospital postgame show afterward if the Bulldogs do not get it done here today.
Chadwick Ivory in our Facebook comment section mentioning something that Jeff reported to us a moment ago, which was Robert Beal, the former big-time signee, 5-star signee from the 2017 class, who played very well for Georgia, at least seemingly so, against LSU a couple weeks ago, got a sack, obviously something Georgia's been looking for more from this year. But you reported a moment ago that Beal not a part of the 70-man travel roster. We will remind you that both Florida and Georgia utilize 70-man travel rosters for this game. They essentially, from a travel standpoint, both treat it like a road game. How surprised are you by the fact that Beal is not here? Talk a little bit more about the news that you reported to us a moment ago.
Well, to me, and this is what we talked about on Before the Hedges, it's another sign that Georgia's 2017 class, the talented players in the nation's number 3 overall class, aren't supporting this roster and the starting lineups the way they probably should by now. Robert Beal was a 5-star at one point. He ended up a 4-star on the composite. He's a guy, you look at guys, Notori Johnson, D'Angelo Gibbs, Matt Landers. There's a lot of guys in that class that have not realized yet, Nate McBride's another one of those, that have not realized the potential coming in now in their 20th games at the University of Georgia.
Justin Minton in our Facebook comment section asking about Ben Cleveland. Let me go back to the topic we started our program with. You're putting a lot of significance on what you saw from Cleveland leading the Georgia team in the dog walk. I will point out that for most of the year, the player that I typically notice walking out first is Georgia tight end Isaac Nada. So that's been a pretty common appearance to see Nada, the first guy off the bus. But today there were at least a few players walking before Nada was on his way there. So it sounds like you think there's something to Cleveland's step out there.
Well, I don't think you bring him here, Brandon, unless he's ready to play, unless he's shown the staff that he can do it this week. I don't think Ben Cleveland is an emergency guard in the event of something happens with injuries on the field. And you leave a guy like Robert Beal off, that says Georgia needs that support in numbers at guard more than they need another pass rusher against Florida. You don't bring Ben Cleveland to Jacksonville maybe a couple of weeks ahead of his injury timeline unless he's ready to go. And goodness sakes, if there's anybody that should be coming off the bus first for Georgia, it's big country, big Cleveland. But he's also a guy, you think of the young man, you think strength and power. And if Ben Cleveland's ready to play and if Ben Cleveland's trying to play, you got to feel that he's going to put a wholehearted effort into doing that.
Jim Lovern says the Dogs going to cover the 6.5 today. Certainly a lot of Georgia fans hope that's true. Amos Williams, though, says that if Georgia were to lose today, that the media, and certainly national media, would paint the 2017 season as a fluke, which goes back, Jeff, to something that you were talking about earlier, how important it is for Georgia to maintain what it established in this rivalry in 2017, what it established in the SEC East in general in 2017, really establishing that all the way. Certainly, that's the kind of thing that Georgia really needs to do here as Georgia gets ready to take the field for more warm-up.
Yeah, Georgia has a young team, no doubt about that. And let's face it, going into this year with all that youth, most people thought that Georgia would lose one game, especially all those that tried to give some balance of objectivity to it. And if Georgia was to lose one game, that was most likely LSU. When they drop a second game, especially this game in Florida, to a team they beat handily last year by 35 points, that's what starts stirring up the worries within Dog Nation.
All right, that's Jeff Sintel. I'm Brandon Adams. We're going to let Jeff step away. You're obviously taking a look at what's happening on the warm-ups right now with the Georgia players. We'll step away and let folks do that as part of our Kroger Kickoff coverage. It's great to have you here on the Dog Nation video channels today. Don't forget, Jeff Sintel got more coming up later on the forum at forum.dognation.com. Also, Chip Towers, Mike Griffith as well, breaking down everything that happens on this field today between the Dogs and the Gators at dognation.com. Make sure you check that out if you haven't already done so. We'll stick with this and give you a chance to see a lot of what's happening on the warm-ups here as Georgia's coming out here and what is now turned into really kind of a beautiful afternoon in Jacksonville. The morning did not start off that way. Now, the initial forecast was for outstanding weather, Chamber of Commerce type day on what is really the biggest day of the year for the greater Jacksonville area from a Chamber of Commerce standpoint. The weather today did not really start off that way, but it has turned into a beautiful afternoon here. It's much warmer than it was this morning. I would suggest it's less windy, much less windy than it was a little earlier. I'm looking up at the goalpost right in front of us, and you're not seeing a lot of movement from them, at least right now. So maybe the stadium in general blocking some of that wind. At one point, it seemed obvious that wind was going to be a big factor in today's game. Maybe not so much right now. Give you an idea to get a sense of what you're seeing right here as well. Obviously, that's McCole Hardman right there, a receiver that could step up in a big way here for Georgia. Also, potentially a big part of the story for Georgia on special teams. We know that Hardman early on in the season was Georgia's biggest big play threat. That could continue here again today, and obviously he'd go a long way towards adding his name into Georgia folklore if he indeed does that. You also see walking by a moment ago, Akeel Crumpton, Karis Jackson. Crumpton, the transfer, Jackson, the freshman wide receiver. Is there a big role for that group here today? And as many Georgia fans are curious about, who will be the one throwing them those balls? Will it be Fromm for the full game today? Will we get a chance to see Justin Fields throw the football? That is a fascinating thing to pay attention to as our Kroger kickoff rolls on. You see the quarterbacks out there in the middle of the field getting ready to go through their paces as the warm-ups continue. I'll also take some of your comments as well as our Kroger kickoff continues. Says, got to get pressure on Franks. Can't let him look like a star. I would completely agree with Jordan on that. That's obviously a big part of today's game, being able to do that. J. Cody Ratliff says, let's use Nate McBride as a fullback. The kid can move, and he has great size. Obviously, a lot of Georgia fans drive through McBride's hometown of Vidalia on their way here to Jacksonville, and clearly McBride continues to be a big fan favorite. You see Jake Fromm right there on your screen. Fromm continuing to warm up and throw. Confident and poised the way he always is before football games. That leadership, that poise will be in high demand here today as Fromm tries to bounce back from what even I think he would admit was a disappointing performance against LSU. But Fromm has been in big games before. Led Georgia in part in the SEC championship game last December. Led Georgia in January at the beginning of the calendar year of 2018 in the Rose Bowl. Could lead Georgia again here today. And, of course, if the offense does falter early, there's no doubt there'll be plenty of calls in our forum at forum.dognation.com and on Twitter, especially those who reach out to me at DogNation Daily for maybe a chance to see the good-looking young freshman, Justin Fields. You also get a chance to see right there, Fields going through warm-ups. Standing next to them is Matthew Downing, the third-string quarterback, and the positioning that Fields and Fromm and Downing have, very similar to the way that it's been every other game thus far this season. But obviously quarterbacks continue to be a center of attention for what's going to happen on today's program. Laurel Carroll calling for more of Jake Fromm in today's game. Andre Harris, on the subject of Nate McBride, says Nate's got to find his spot. He's a great athlete. Chris Massey says that Jake Fromm's been playing in big games his entire life. I think Chris is right about that, which means that the likelihood is that Fromm will fit in very well in what is one of the biggest Georgia-Florida games in quite some time. This is quite an atmosphere already. You may have heard some boos a moment ago as Florida came out for more of its warm-ups. This is a huge atmosphere, huge moment, and it's good to have you with us as we cover it here as part of our Kroger kickoff. Georgia continues its warm-ups and continues to go through its pace. We are about 45 minutes from game time as it stands right now. We are getting close to the start of the game here. Subject of the warm-up says that Justin Fields looks good out there. And obviously Fields is an impressive himself and how he throws the football. There's no doubt about that. Timothy Canillo in the Facebook comment section says that Georgia can't afford another letdown today. It's very true that a lot of the energy that will surround Georgia in today's game is similar to the energy that probably surrounded LSU in the last game that Georgia played. LSU at that point had already suffered a loss. LSU knew that coming into that game that any postseason aspirations it had, any attempt it wanted to make the Alabama game in November still matter, meant playing back against the wall against Georgia. And they came out and did exactly that to their credit. Georgia now finds itself in much the same position. To be fair, Florida also after the Kentucky loss, it could be said is the same way here. But this Georgia team that I think justifiably, incredibly, had championship goals at the beginning of the season, they will put them on the line here today. And, of course, we're bringing it to you here at the Kroger Kickoff. Don't forget, after the game, we'll have our Northside Hospital postgame show from this same spot right here on the field. Of course, Dog Nation's Jeff Sintel will be back here as well. And as I've encouraged you to do before, make sure you check out everything being written by our buddy Chip Towers and Mike Griffith at DogNation.com. And if you're looking for a great gathering spot during the game, kind of a second screen experience, we would encourage you to check out the forum at forum.dognation.com, where the conversation will no doubt be spirited all day long as Georgia fans share their thoughts on the good, the bad, and everything in between the Dogs and Gators. Let me also remind you that as we head towards Halloween, make sure you stock up on everything you need for Halloween. The candy, the cookies for Halloween party, cupcakes at your local Atlanta Kroger. They got great savings right now to get you ready for the big day, and that is certainly going to be a lot of fun here. We are looking forward to that, and, of course, the rest of the week here, Kroger also featuring some buy one, get one sale savings as well. So check out more of your local Atlanta Kroger for more on that, too. A little bit more there of DeAndre Swift. His family gathered very close here to the sidelines where we're broadcasting from right now. Obviously, they're looking to see more of him here today. Justin Fields there as well in position there. As Georgia continues its warm-ups and continues to get ready to go here. What an incredible atmosphere it is as tailgating continues for the most part on the outside. A lot of the students have already made their way in, and a lot of folks kind of getting ready to go here this afternoon for the Georgia Bulldogs and the Florida Gators. Also, one of the main dignitaries, UGA 10, has also just arrived here on the field. UGA 10 will take his home there on the sidelines here. The most beloved mascot in all of college football, the beautiful white English bulldog that is UGA 10, who has made, along with his descendants, many, many trips over the years here to Jacksonville, seeing some great Georgia moments and looking forward to celebrate many more great moments to come. It would not be Georgia-Florida without the presence of UGA and the latest iteration here, UGA 10. How about that as a part of our Kroger Kickoff, getting a chance to see UGA looking as beautiful and regal as ever here. What an incredible, incredible moment. And it's amazing and fun to watch the cameramen and photographers come get around here as UGA now gets ready to get suited up with his Georgia G jersey. And it quickly transforms into about the most recognizable symbol associated with the Georgia football program, not just among Dog Nation, but around the world here. A mascot that's been voted the best in the sport, an image that's easily noted as being about the Georgia Bulldogs here. And how about UGA 10 here as part of our Kroger Kickoff? You don't get any better than that here. And if you're enjoying that here, part of what we're doing. Chris Collins says, as the Krypton theme comes from the Redco Band on the other end of the field from where we're standing, Chris Collins says if the O-line plays above its ceiling today, the little deal could have a breakout game. Yeah, listen, I think Holyfield in spots this year has proven himself to be a top-flight running back. But as far as becoming the kind of featured back, the way that Nick Chubb, Sonny Michel have been for Georgia over the last 4 years, this could be the kind of day where that does indeed happen here for Elijah Holyfield today. That would certainly be a great thing to see as you see more of the quarterbacks along with Demetrius Robertson here. And the Georgia defense now going to make its way onto the field. More of the Georgia players coming out here to warm up. The fight song will welcome them in to do so. And the students and crowd continue to make a big noise here as Georgia gets ready to make its way on the field here. Thanks for being a part of our Kroger Kickoff. What an exciting scene and atmosphere this is before Georgia, Florida. We've been hearing from Georgia fans over the course of the last 2 weeks here around Dog Nation. Clearly this is a game that means a lot to the fans of this program, and clearly there's some excitement here about what Georgia's going to be able to do. We'll look forward to continuing to take more of your comments on this here as we continue to roll on, heading towards kickoff at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS, and, of course, with our radio partners on News 95.5 at AM 750 WSB. We'll invite you to check that out then on the radio for those of you who may not be able to get close to your TV. Of course, we'd also love for you to be a part of our Northside Hospital postgame show immediately after the game here as well. What we hope is a happy, victorious Northside Hospital postgame show. Myself and Jeff Sintel will be talking to you a lot about what's going on there. We'll also take some more of your comments here today. As UGA 10 is certainly a big topic of conversation in the comment section. John Anthony says, let's beat those Gators down. And, John, if you were a regular watcher, listener, viewer to Dog Nation here, you know how much this game means to me, and I can't tell you how much I'd love to see the same thing go down here this afternoon. And I think there's some confidence among Dog Nation that is indeed what's going to happen. It's been fun seeing some of those comments as a part of our Kroger kickoff here. Brooke Pascal Griffin says, everyone wants a good game. This time I want a blowout. I want to see the Dogs blow out the Gators. And, boy, Brooke, I think a lot of Georgia fans would agree with you. 42-7 a year ago within an eyelash of a shutout. I think a lot of Georgia fans would love to see a repeat of that history here today. It is worth pointing out that the favorite has covered in this series 7 of the last 8. And the last 3, the favorite has not only covered but had a margin of victory of more than 24 points. So this has been a situation over the last 3 years at least where favorites have performed well. And so certainly we'll see how that happens again today as you see more of what's going on here with our Kroger kickoff, where they look at some of the work being done in the Georgia end zone here by some of the Georgia defensive linemen, Jonathan Ledbetter included. As Georgia continues to give a workout here, really good-looking stuff. See Tyson Campbell there. Of course, DeAndre Baker, as you see on your screen there. Baker, the likely first-round pick in the NFL draft, maybe come April, and in a lot of ways the most important player on this Georgia defense for much of this season thus far. There's Richard LeCounte as well. LeCounte grew up not too far from here in nearby Liberty County, Georgia. And no doubt this is an important game for LeCounte and his family growing up here. Of course, you may have seen earlier as we were showing you some of the work that, as Jeff Sintel predicted, Ben Cleveland is in uniform here. He is dressed. So we'll see what later on that means for his status here. But Cleveland is dressed out as of right now. So that could be good news for a player that I had all but written off for being able to play today. But it looks like we're getting reports coming in. Looks like he is dressed out and ready to go. We'll see how much he is ready to go, but he's certainly dressed out here. Sean Lettner says a good game is not going to be good enough. We need a game to show the country we are a true playoff and national championship contender. I'd agree with Sean on that. Another Sean Floyd says the Florida D.C. Tide Grantham, remember this, is 0-3 against our Dogs. That's also a really good point there as well. Of course, you get losing in humiliating fashion a year ago with Georgia playing Mississippi State. Mike Griffin, who's close to the scene there with Ben Cleveland, says, according to his eye, Ben Cleveland, while dressed out, not looking full speed in warm-ups right now. So that continues to be a big sigh and certainly something that the Georgia fans are watching very closely here. And so we appreciate good reporting there from a couple folks there on that. Jordan Browning brings up a really good point that he thinks Jordan Davis could be a secret weapon for the Dogs here today. That's a guy that has gotten some compliments here over the course of the last couple of weeks from Kirby Smart as a guy that, gives Georgia a true nose guard, the beef that it needs, but is also slimmed down a little bit to make him a little bit more versatile. That's an important part of a defensive lineman's repertoire. It seems like a light to some degree has come on for Davis. And for a Georgia team that needs to get better at stopping the run, Davis is certainly the kind of guy that gives you a chance to do that. So I think that Jordan Browning brings up a really good point there in that regard. We're going to be with you for a couple more minutes here on our our Kroger kickoff. Check out Kroger this week for some buy one get one sale savings. Check out Kroger for all your Halloween needs. We head towards the big day next Wednesday. And if you haven't signed up yet for Kroger Ship, it's a great time to do that. You get 15% off and free shipping on your first order. It's all the essentials that you need delivered right there to your door. Check out Kroger Ship if you have not done that. That is the fastest, easiest, most convenient way to buy groceries. All right, we're going to get ready to sign off here on our Kroger kickoff. More coming from Dog Nation, though, both at the forum at forum.dognation.com, also at dognation.com, and then immediately after the game when it comes to the Northside Hospital postgame show from right back on what we hope is a victorious field for the Dogs here today. As the warm-ups continue, keep it close to Dog Nation. We're playing more updates on who's in uniform and who's looking good and who might be ready to go. Thanks so much for being a part of our Kroger kickoff. Have a great time and watching the game, everybody.